Chapter 14. A King's Protection and a Warrior's Transformation. The situation in Mecca had become unbearable for many Muslims. Persecution was rampant, and the weaker believers were particularly vulnerable to abuse. In response, the Prophet, peace be upon him, advised them to seek refuge in Abyssinia, a Christian kingdom ruled by a just king, the Najashi, who would not tolerate injustice. So, quietly and in small groups, around 80 Muslims, including women and children, secretly left Mecca and set out for Abyssinia. Their departure went unnoticed by the Quraysh until it was too late. The Meccan leaders were enraged and feared that this growing community of Muslims beyond their reach would become even more dangerous. They quickly devised a plan to retrieve them. They sent 2 envoys to Abyssinia, laden with valuable gifts, hoping to persuade the Najashi to hand over the Muslim refugees. The envoys approached the king's generals first, bribing them with the finest leather goods and urging them to convince the Najashi to return the Muslims to Mecca without giving them a chance to defend themselves. But the Najashi was a fair and wise ruler, and he refused to betray the refugees without hearing their side of the story. He summoned the Muslims to his court, and Ja'far, the Prophet's cousin, stepped forward as their spokesperson. The Najashi asked them why they had fled their people and what new religion they followed. Ja'far explained, "O king, we were a people steeped in ignorance. We worshipped idols, ate sacrificed carrion, and committed great wrongs. Then God sent us a messenger from amongst us, whose truthfulness and integrity we knew. He called us to worship the one God, and to renounce the false gods of our ancestors. He commanded us to speak truth, honor our promises, respect our neighbors, and avoid bloodshed. For this, our people turned against us, persecuted us, and sought to force us back into their ways. That is why we came to your land, seeking your protection." The Najashi listened intently. He then asked if they had any of the revelations their prophet had received. Ja'far recited verses from the Surah of Mary describing the birth of Jesus. As the verses were translated, the Najashi and his bishops were moved to tears. The king declared, "This has truly come from the same source as what Jesus brought." He refused to hand over the refugees, saying, "They shall not be betrayed." But the Quraysh envoy, Amr ibn al-As, was not ready to give up. The next day, he returned to the Najashi with a new accusation. He claimed that the Muslims spoke blasphemy against Jesus, calling him a mere slave of God. The Najashi summoned the Muslims once more, and Ja'far bravely affirmed, "We say of Jesus what our prophet has told us, that he is the servant and messenger of God, his spirit and his word, which he cast upon the Virgin Mary." The Najashi picked up a small stick and said, "By God, Jesus, the son of Mary, does not exceed what you have said by the length of this stick." He then sent the Quraysh envoys away, returning their gifts and assuring the Muslims that they were safe under his protection. Meanwhile, in Mecca, the failure of the envoys to retrieve the Muslims only increased the fury of the Quraysh. Under the leadership of Abu Jahl, persecution intensified, and few were as violent as his nephew, Umar ibn al-Khattab. Fiercely loyal to the traditions of his ancestors, Umar viewed Islam as a direct threat to the unity of Quraysh and the sanctity of the Kaaba. His heart was hardened, and he believed that the only way to restore peace was to kill the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself. One day, filled with anger, Umar strapped on his sword and set out to find the Prophet. Along the way, he encountered a man named Nu'aym, who had secretly embraced Islam. Sensing Umar's intent, Nu'aym tried to divert him by revealing a shocking secret. "O Umar, before you deal with Muhammad, perhaps you should take care of your own family. Your sister Fatima and her husband Sa'id have both accepted Islam." Furious, Umar turned toward his sister's house. As he arrived, he heard voices reciting verses from the Quran. Bursting in, he confronted them, demanding to know if the rumors were true. When his brother-in-law admitted their belief, Umar attacked him, and when Fatima tried to intervene, he struck her as well. Seeing the blood on his sister's face, something in Umar softened. His anger gave way to guilt, and he asked to see the pages they had been reading. His sister, sensing the change in him, insisted that he first cleanse himself, as only the pure could touch the Quran. After washing, Umar read the verses from the newly revealed Surah Taha. The beauty and truth of the words pierced his heart, and he exclaimed, "How noble are these words!" At that moment, Khabbab, who had been hiding, came forward and said, "O Umar, I have hope that God has chosen you through the prayer of his prophet. Yesterday I heard him pray, 'O God, strengthen Islam with either Abu Jahl or Umar ibn al-Khattab.'" Moved by these words, Umar asked where the prophet was, determined to declare his faith. He made his way to the house of al-Arqam, where the Muslims were gathered. When he knocked at the door, the companions were wary, for he was known for his hostility. But the prophet, peace be upon him, welcomed him inside. Grabbing him by his belt, the prophet asked, "What has brought you here, O son of Khattab?" Umar responded, "I have come to declare my faith in God and his messenger." The prophet cried, "Allahu Akbar." His companions rejoiced, for with Umar's conversion, the Muslims gained a powerful ally. No longer was Islam to be practiced in secret. Umar, with his boldness and strength, would help to change the course of their struggle in Mecca.